Look at this image. What do you see? Concert venues, restaurants, and movie theaters? Looks exciting, right? If you haven't already figured it out, it's a modern day image of one of St. Louis's most famous streets, the Delmar Loop. It's incredible to me how much can be depicted in this one shot. In this one photograph alone, we can see dozens of buildings and architecture that span over a century. This one image holds so much weight to so many lives, including my own. My pure fascination with this one street has motivated me to center my capstone project around it. My goal for my capstone project is to understand the historical aspect of the street, as well as the present impact and the future it hopes to hold. I want my audience to understand the importance of the street and a university city, and why people value it so greatly. To give a little personal background, here is my neighborhood in correlation to the loop. This photo, which I got off Google Maps, depicts how close I actually am to the loop. The northern part of my neighborhood actually directly borders the loop, and my house is about a quarter mile from the entrance. Being so close to the loop, it has always been a staple of my childhood. Walking up to Fitz's and watching March Madness as a child, enjoying the duck room at Blueberry Hill, or playing arcade games at Cicero's are some nostalgic memories that I recall and reflect the drastic impact that the loop has had on me as a young man. So that begs the question, how does the Delmar Loop go from looking like this to looking like this? The man pictured above, Edgar Gardner Lewis, or E.G. Lewis for short, was vital to the success and the beginnings of the Delmar Loop. E.G. Lewis, born in 1869 in Connecticut, initially came to the Delmar Loop in 1903. When E.G. Lewis arrived, he had one simple goal: to build a municipality west of downtown St. Louis. Lewis's first impact on the modern-day Delmar Loop was simple, as he purchased 85 acres of land in 1903, which overlooked some establishments, including the Delmar Gardens amusement park. I like to phrase it as cleaning a house. When Lewis bought the land, it was home to a multitude of different things, both an outdoor and indoor swimming pool, an amusement park, a racetrack, and more. Over the next 15 years, Lewis slowly destroyed and replaced those attractions. Despite that, Lewis, pictured here on the right, was a passionate businessman with an eye for potential. Lewis's eager desire for change, as well as his passion for profit, led him to establish the first building in what is now the Western Delmar Loop. Built in 1903, the Woman's Magazine building hosted a massive newspaper business. To put it in perspective, the company averaged 1.5 million sales per paper on their most popular article, the Woman's Magazine. In modern terms, E.G. Lewis can be defined as a trailblazer. His determination to establish an urban community west of the Mississippi can only be admired. Lewis looked at the world with eyes of curiosity and possibility. He challenged himself to develop a new community based on his own beliefs and values. To follow that dream, Lewis decided that he would establish a series of subdivisions just west of the Delmar Loop to house himself and what he hoped would be a hardworking family community. The establishment and protection for these neighborhoods was a key component of Lewis's goal, and he decided a municipal government would serve best. This led to the establishment of University City on September 6, 1906, leaving Lewis's legacy forever engraved. Through the next decade or so, Lewis tried his best to develop and grow the underdeveloped land around the Delmar Loop. He had both his failures and successes. However, most of his developments never quite withstood the test of time. Lewis's legacy ends on a relatively sour note. Always suspected as a man of foul play, Lewis was accused a handful of times for fraud. From his first indictment in 1905 to filing for bankruptcy in the late 1910s, Lewis just wasn't always present. These charges led Lewis to a sudden departure from University City. He would eventually land in California in 1914. Though Lewis's departure hindered the Delmar Loop, his establishment of University City led to a great deal of development in what is now St. Louis County. While no mayor gave great attention to the development of Delmar Loop for the next decade, University City continued to expand, with an improving school system and the construction of more homes. By 1925, however, modern times were destined for the Delmar Loop. In 1925, the Castlereagh apartments were built, marking a more futuristic time. These buildings stood within touching distance of the Egyptian building, one of Lewis's more prominent creations. The Castlereagh building marked a sense of a new era. It can be argued that this singular building brought a sense of life to a street that hadn't been touched in nearly a decade. This marked a sense of excitement in the Loop. In the upcoming years, a multitude of developments that are still present today would begin to spring up. The Tivoli movie theater, O'Hara's Loop Market, and the Delmar Gardens buildings were all prominent constructions that heralded new life in an up-and-coming street. Over the next 30 to 40 years, the Loop experienced minimal change. It transformed into a retail hub for many of its visitors, or simply a place to spend a leisurely day in town. In a sense, the Loop was fulfilling its original purpose, evolving into an urban hotspot as more and more people migrated westward. While restaurants and stores came and went, there was always something to experience. However, cracks began to appear. The prominence of cars terminated the trolley system from which the Loop derived its name. This culminated in its closure in 1966. The Loop's failure during this era was not caused by its attractions, rather its lack of adaptation. The Loop would not experience a breath of fresh air until 1972. In 1972, this man, Joe Edwards, a recent alum of Duke University, returned home to St. Louis with an aching for commercial success. With what little money he had, and some loans from friends, Edwards was able to establish Blueberry Hill for the measly cost of $10,000. Blueberry Hill, as many of you probably already know, is an iconic restaurant located in what is really the center of the Delmar Loop. The restaurant, similar to the Castlereagh apartments, marked a new era on the Loop. As someone who's been eating at this restaurant my whole life, I can definitely testify to its unique layout and creative environment. The restaurant is filled with everything: dartboards, claw machines, collectible figures, and more. I can't stress the importance of Blueberry Hill to the Delmar Loop. Not only did it create a spark plug in a deteriorating street, it launched the career of arguably the Loop's main character, Joe Edwards. To have a more tangible understanding of Edwards' significance, I interviewed longtime resident of Parkview and current resident of Skinker de Bolivar, Miss Christina Mongrody.
This one's a little more specific. Do you have any memories at Blueberry Hill in specific as a kid? Do you remember?
Yes, that was was a big place to go. It was the one place we could walk to for dinner once the Red Lantern closed. But it was like the one place, so that was kind of our staple, like on Fridays. The other thing was, and I remember it always smelled really bad.
Yeah.
It always smelled really bad. But we would love to go and sit in a.
Edwards' significance to the Delmar Loop has only continued to grow since the establishment of Blueberry Hill. Over the past half-century and even today, he has been dedicated to revitalizing the street. One of his main goals has been to extend the street eastward, connecting it to public transportation in the form of the St. Louis Metro. Throughout the last 50 years, Edwards has steadily worked towards this goal. In 1988, Edwards established the St. Louis Walk of Fame, a tribute honoring famous and influential St. Louisans. This tribute takes the form of brass stars that litter the Loop sidewalks. Then, in 1995, he undertook the restoration of the deteriorating Tivoli Theater, reopening it as a fully functioning venue. His efforts continued with the establishment of the Pageant in 2000, a mid-major concert venue capable of seating up to 2,300 people and hosting numerous concerts each year. For the past 25 years, Edwards has been deeply committed to the growth of the Loop. He has also added to its allure by establishing venues such as Peacock Diner in 2014, the Moonrise Hotel in 2009, Delmar Hall in 2016, and most recently, Magic Mini Golf in 2023. Edwards' decision to move the Delmar Loop eastward, and actually into St. Louis City, was very risky, but a necessary decision for the Delmar Loop's development. I actually spoke to Edwards directly about this.
It's really important to go east of Limit, east of Skinker. Everybody thinks the dividing line is Skinker, but it's not legally, it's Limit.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, it was really important to do that, and that's why I list everything yet again to go across that dividing line of east and west. It's not just north and south. It's not just Delmar to the north and Delmar to the south. It was east and west with Skinker.
I also spoke to Stacy Clay about this divide, who currently serves as a city councilman for University City.
The key to that is collaboration. Um, and there have been times that's been effective and times, candidly, has not been particularly effective. Um, the reality is the city's first priority, St. Louis City's first priority is St. Louis City. And in all fairness, U City's first priority is U City.
Yeah.
Now, I think clearly both governments, both entities understand the need for collaboration, and in many ways that enriches both sides. But there are times where, we come to an impasse because the folks in U City want to make sure we're not getting the short end all the time, and the city wants to make sure it's not getting the short end all the time. And unfortunately, because we have so many municipalities and we're so divided, the incentives are structured in such a way that you tend to want to take care of your own.
With all of that understood, we can discuss the Delmar Loop as it is today. The Delmar Loop is 8 blocks of shops, restaurants, attractions, and more. It still is, to this day, lively and full of people on a daily basis. This past weekend, I took a walk through the Loop, going as far west as the Lions Gates and as far east as Delmar Hall. Here are some of the images I took. Here is the Lions Gate, which still separates the Loop from the residential areas of University City. Here's the magazine building. Now known as the University City Hall, it is a towering structure that is beautiful to see. Here's the Castlereagh building, which, from the outside, looks very structurally sound. Here's the Delmar Gardens building, which still has the same architectural patterns that were present in 1925. As I move eastward, here are some of Edward's more recent creations: Pinup Bowl, Peacock Diner, and Magic Mini Golf. With that established, we've successfully covered the last 120 years of the Delmar Loop. That leaves us with one question. What is the Delmar Loop's future? How do these developments affect it? Is it heading in a positive direction? I'll let my 3 interviewees try to answer this question with their own respective opinions.
It does. It ebbs and flows. I think it is definitely ebbing right now. Yeah, I think it is ebbing. I hope it'll come back. I think it's a fine line between finding it independent businesses to come up and be there, and your corporate businesses like the bread co, things like that. I go back to the bread company leaving. I think that was somebody looking on paper and saying, well, there's a bread co right up there. We just built a brand new building. In Clayton, why would we keep this one open? But they were served to totally different populations and needs. Like there isn't, like if we wouldn't be here, we would have met a bread co.
Yeah.
So things like that. I hope it's on its way up. I do like that it's reached further east. I think that's great.
One of the most significant things that happened, and it happened last year, Joe Edwards retired and sold many of his properties to Washington University. The fate of the Loop is really in Washington University's hands.
I think the Loop is heading in a good direction, and as long as the building owners and the people they lease to buy into the fact that let's think long term and not just for 6 months, and all that will be fine. And the fact that all these other groups and people are coming in to the east to redevelop and stabilize those areas from here up to Kings Highway, that's a great sign for St. Louis, not just for the Delmar Loop. That's a great sign for St. Louis. And this area, of all areas in St. Louis, that it just has such great potential.
When thinking about my conclusion, I just can't find the words to describe how I feel about the future of the Delmar Loop. I've spoken to some very influential people, and I've felt my opinion shift countless times during the making of this project. The Loop has issues: vacancies, crime, people moving westward, etc. But I can't sit here and not have any belief in the future of the Loop. Who says there can't be another Joe Edwards, another E.G. Lewis? This project has taught me it only takes one person to make a massive difference. So, my final conclusion is lackluster. I don't know what the future of the Loop holds. I could see it continue to expand and develop, or I could watch it fall apart. I guess I'm just going to have to wait and see. Thank you.